we have with us national award-winning filmmaker Aparna Sanyal, who's also the co-founder of the Red Door, which is a mental health organization about inclusivity and peer support. Hello, Aparna.
Hi, Shikha. How nice to meet you online in this fashion.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. So, Aparna, can you tell us a bit about your work as a filmmaker and where does it intersect with your role in the field of mental health and peer support?
Right. Shikha, I guess it all began with a film I made nearly a decade ago. The film was called A Drop of Sunshine, and it looked at the story of recovery of somebody who had been given a diagnosis of schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia. Her name is Reshma Valyappan, and through the making of the film, I basically went through different kinds of research, a process of meeting different kinds of people, and they introduced me to a worldview which was very different from the mainstream paradigm of mental health and the ways in which mental illness is looked at. In the world at large, I discovered very early on while I was doing research for the film that there was this inexplicable sense of despair and gloom whenever anything to do with mental illness was discussed, and I had begun to believe it until, of course, I, through sheer luck and thanks to some incredible work that has been done by people across the world. It was certainly not my discovery alone. It's something that a lot of people have been speaking about, but unfortunately it hasn't become as center stage as it ought to be. So A Drop of Sunshine for me was my very tiny attempt at bringing forth an alternative view on mental health and mental illness. And whenever I speak about it, I always do a little hat tip to the thousands of people, academics, doctors, researchers who have done such great work in creating that body of work, which allows somebody like me, a filmmaker like me, to put forth an alternative view to begin with. If they had not done that work, I wouldn't be able to say what I'm saying right now, and what I have been saying for the last, nearly 1 decade. Now, what happened during that the making of the film was not just the film; it was also the beginning of a very strong friendship, a very strong relationship, with the protagonist of the film, Reshma. And it was really like, I had been reading whatever I'd been reading to prepare myself to meet her, because she was in a sense an exemplification of all the research and all the theory that I had been reading. So it was really like great. I mean, I keep calling it magical, and it really was magical, meeting of two people and two minds. After we met, and after the film was made and it sort of went out into the world, we felt that there was still a need to, in a systematic way, speak about these ideas, because it really shouldn't be rocket science, but it really seemed like what we were saying was just challenging, the commonsensical view of mental illness. And we wondered how we could do that in a more systematic way. Of course, the Red Door didn't really begin as a concerted effort as such. It was it really began as an experiment, where we said, okay, can we create spaces where people can come and, just spend an afternoon with art? So we would just get the supplies, painting supplies, colors, paints, crayons, whatever, paper. And we would just invite people to come and, spend that afternoon with us. And we did the first such event in February or March 2011 in Delhi. And once Reshma went back to Pune, because she's from Pune, she continued to do these, little experiments, in public parks, at the railway station, with street kids, with organizations working with different kinds of people, so it just became this very organic sort of attempt to reach out. Now, somewhere along the way, because it's also been a decade, we started doing this in 2011. So somewhere along the way, our ideas also sort of, became more concrete. We had a better sense of what we wanted to do, what we wanted to achieve. Along with that, what also happened was that Reshma also began to be invited to more and more places to share her story. And she sort of, now the world recognizes her as a mental health advocate, where basically what she asks for is, and what the Red Door stands for at its very heart, is basically a more humane approach to people. We believe that mental illness, whatever your diagnosis may be, it could be bipolar, it could be schizophrenia, it could be depression, whatever, is merely a label, and everybody behind the label has a story, and we have to listen to the story if we must understand what they've been through, what they're going through. And we also believe very strongly that it is absolutely vital for the person to form their own understanding of why they're going through what they're going through, what probably brought it on, to really have an in-depth understanding of what triggers them, what they need to be careful about, what caused the trauma in their lives that it did, so to really have a very very nuanced understanding of yourself and your own experiences over time, which led you to, because we are firmly of the belief that a breakdown comes only because certain things have happened over a period of time for you to face that breakdown, and unless you form your own understanding of it, there cannot be any going forward. So and again, like I keep reiterating always, what we're saying is really not rocket science. It honestly should be the most commonsensical thing, but I'm just amazed a lot of times when people come back to me and tell me that they've been to somebody for support and they weren't even asked anything about their history or their background. That really shocks me. There are many very, very good people within the system, but there are many who really need to take a second look at how they go about working with people. So I guess at its heart, the Red Door, and it completely comes from A Drop of Sunshine, where we just felt that if there could be one Reshma, why couldn't there be more? And now we know, there is enough proof and enough evidence from across the world that Reshma's not the only one. There are many, many people who have crafted their own recoveries, and the paths they have taken may have been different, but inevitably it has been a path where they have formed an understanding of themselves, which is unique to them. So so that really is what the Red Door stands for at its heart.
All right. So Aparna, it all started with A Drop of Sunshine, but then you made many other films like Monks Who Won the Grammy, One Mustard Seed. So how do your films help you expand the vocabulary on mental health? Because each film is different from the other, yet somewhere they touch upon this common thread.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And I think each film has, in a sense, led to the other. So my film on schizophrenia, A Drop of Sunshine, led me to become really interested in Buddhism. And that's how, and it was just a matter of luck, really, that so it's really interesting, how I got introduced to a particular monastery, and I went on to make I'm making a third film with them, so it's been 3 films with them. It's a Buddhist monastery, and I was introduced to the monastery by Shobna Narayan, the Kathak dancer, the Kathak maestro. And so this was, I think, sometime in 2013 when I met, the head of the monastery. He's the 12th Chamgon Taisitupa, an incredible man. Somebody I respect so much, somebody from whom I've really learned a lot. And the person introducing me was Shona Narayan, who's again an incredible person, such a brave woman. Who's also sort of, created a life for herself, pretty much on her own. And as luck would have it, I went on to make a film on her, and also one on Palpung, the monastery that I was, in touch with and working with. So I'd always been, I'd been reading like a lay person, right? After after A Drop of Sunshine, I was reading like a lay person on Buddhism, basically reading whatever I could lay my hands on with no direction really, it was just very arbitrary. But once I was introduced to the Taisitupa, my understanding of Buddhism became far more layered, far more nuanced. He directed me to books that I could read. And I mean, to me, I'm just so grateful for that opportunity. And I really consider it a great privilege to have spent that kind of time with him, to have, been guided by him. So basically what that resulted was in a great deal of interest in Vajrayana Buddhism, which is the third vehicle of Buddhism. There's Theravada, there's Mahayana, and then there's Vajrayana. And it's mind-blowing. Some of the concepts of Vajrayana Buddhism are just mind-blowing. And they have a particular view of the human psyche, which is far more enriching than anything I've come across in any school or branch of psychology. Or psychotherapy. It's just incredible, the manner in which they imagine the human psyche. And so, of course, that really made a huge impact on me. And I see myself going back to those ideas all the time because they've really stayed with me. I've found them to be extremely powerful. From that came another film, which this time was on death. That's One Mustard Seed that you spoke of. And, Buddhism is nothing if not, an attempt to understand suffering, human suffering, and what causes human suffering. And it trains you to, change your perspective on life, as a result of which even what you think is suffering, sort of transforms itself into something else. So I was very interested in those ideas and death. This is something that I always talk about anytime anybody asks me about the film. I was always very scared of death. I have a fear of death, and I think most people do. And making the film was my attempt to get over that fear. And what had also helped was that I had made a film for an organization that works on palliative care, Cancer Port. And I had been really impressed by the people working there and the ease with which they could talk about death. And I felt that was something that, one needed to understand. I was really envious of them at some level. So that's how One Mustard Seed happened. I guess you could say that, I'm really curious about, newer ways to understand the human psyche. I think if there has to be like one underlying theme of anything I do, I think it is that, to try and improve my own understanding of the human psyche, to find newer ways to understand why people behave the way they do, why I behave the way I do, why people in my life behave the way they do, and I feel like if you are able to understand that, then, you've done something worthwhile in your life. Otherwise, one can just sleepwalk through life, not really knowing why one is doing what one is doing. So, you could say that this is what gives me meaning. This is what gives me my sense of purpose.
Okay. Also, Aparna, this is your journey as a filmmaker, but a lot of times these films must have gotten screened at various places in the country. And each film, the post-screening discussion, how it evolved, and can you tell us a bit about the experience, how well these films were received, and how the discussion itself sort of started a conversation about mental health?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think each of the films lead to very different kinds of conversations post the screening. It depends, of course, on where it's being screened and what kind of people have come for the screening. And sometimes, it's almost as interesting as the making of the film, to be part of these discussions, because the kinds of perspectives that people can come up with, their points of view, it's really interesting. And a lot of times, it makes you reflect on your filmmaking choices. It makes you reflect on why you made the decisions you did, why you chose to tell the story in the manner that you did. So it's very enriching. I really look forward to discussions, on the films, because they can really lead to um, a period of reflection, for not just the filmmaker, hopefully, but also the people who are part of such a discussion. And I mean, it's something that psychotherapy constantly talks about, right? That you have to be able to reflect on, the darker truths of life. And of course, we try and avoid it as much as possible. And I think conversations like these can, in a very gentle way, lead us to difficult conversations that we don't otherwise want to be part of. So yeah, I mean, I really look forward to conversations, post discussions. I think they can be really meaningful and really enriching for everyone.
Yeah. Also, Aparna, what is your larger view or concerns about the field of mental health, especially in unusual times like these, when each one of us is vulnerable due to the pandemic and how things are?
Yeah, I think in a way it's really good that we are all going through this experience together. I mean, there's nobody on this earth right now who is untouched by the pandemic, right? We've all thought about it, we've all felt vulnerable, we've all wondered if we will survive the rest of the year. We're all wondering whether our medical infrastructure will be able to cope. These are, I mean, for once, these are all very common concerns, as opposed to a lot of conversation around mental health where, it really becomes the problem of the person, you know, in the sense that, anytime anything happens, people are told, oh, go get help, as though it is your problem. You go get help. It doesn't concern me. You have a problem, so you go get help. For once, I think people can't really do that. They can't really turn their eyes away from what's happening. So I think in that sense, it's a good thing, because it has allowed everyone, whether willingly or unwillingly, to feel vulnerable. And that feeling, I think, is a great one, because it then allows people to feel a bit of empathy, perhaps, for another person. The problem, I think, with most of us is that when the going is good for us, we assume that nothing bad can ever happen, and so we don't invest ourselves in others' lives. And then when things go bad for us, there's really no one to be there for us either. And we run away from feelings of vulnerability. So when we feel vulnerable, we just don't know what to do with ourselves. We feel like we'll completely fall apart, that we'll break down. Actually, feeling vulnerable is part of the human experience. And, the more times you felt vulnerable, the better it probably is, because it gives you a sense of how to deal with your own vulnerability. It gives you a sense of how to deal with, your feelings of disappointment or failure. And the more practice you have dealing with those feelings, the better you will be at dealing with them. So in that sense, I think it's a really good thing, because it allows everyone to feel that pang of uncertainty, which otherwise a lot of us, in our arrogance, don't allow ourselves to feel. So whether it will lead to a more nuanced conversation around mental health, I'm not so sure, because if the contours of the conversation are not sort of sketched out correctly, how can you have the right kind of conversation around it? So if the only thing you can tell someone who's suffering is go get help, and if you don't offer yourself and of course, I'm not saying you need to do that with everyone. It's not possible. You would, have an emotional burnout if you did that. But for your friends, if you can't be there in a non-judgmental way, if you can't create a safe space for them, then you wouldn't really know what to do with uncomfortable feelings about yourself or anyone else when they strike you. So I don't know if that answered your question. Did it?
Yeah, it did. Okay, thank you, Parna. I'm sure the dialogue or the conversation around mental health has evolved since you made a drop of sunshine, and it will keep on evolving further. Thank you for speaking with us. And
It
yeah,
was a pleasure. It was a pleasure, and I completely agree. I think things have really changed over the last few years. I think there's a lot more conversation around mental health. I just wish that it would become a little more inclusive and embrace newer ideas, which are far more holistic and which are far more, cognizant of the person, who's going through emotional distress. And it's happening. It's not like it's not happening, but I think we need more of that. So it was a pleasure talking to you, Shikha. Thanks so much.
same here, Parna. Thanks.
Bye.